Many Christians love Craig's moral argument. I mean, they really love it. What could be more fun than dunking on those silly atheists and trying to show that their worldview leaves no room for objective moral facts? While I'm open to the truth of moral anti-realism in principle, I don't really see how theistic accounts of metaethics have any real advantages over non-theistic ones. Regardless, there is an interesting problem that arises for conservative Christians who want to spam the moral argument. Namely, that placing so much emphasis on it ironically opens the floodgates to a variety of powerful objections to their beliefs. First, let's discuss the argument. So, here it is. If God does not exist, objective moral values and duties do not exist. Objective moral values and duties do exist. Therefore, God exists. Right off the bat, I think there are good reasons to doubt premise 1. And I would submit that it's not really that crazy to doubt premise 2 if you dispute what Craig means by objective here, even though I'm sympathetic to it. But regardless of what you think, let's assume premise 2 is correct for the sake of argument. Anyway, what I really want to do is draw attention to how the second premise is defended. After all, how do we know that objective moral values and duties actually exist in the first place?
What reason would we have to believe that objective moral values and duties exist? Well, basically, it would be our moral experience. Just as we believe in the world of sense objects around us, physical objects, because we have a sense of them through our senses, so we can believe in the objective reality of moral values and duties on the basis of our moral experience. In the absence of some reason to defeat your experiences, you're justified in believing in what those experiences teach you.
Basically, for many people, it overwhelmingly seems like there are stance-independent moral truths, and that's a good reason to believe that there are until adequate defeaters are presented. I actually have no quibbles with this, and think the real debate should be about whether things like evolutionary debunking arguments and the like succeed in defeating these initial appearances for those who have them. But regardless of whether you agree, this is how Craig is thinking. He's saying it's totally fine to go with your moral experience unless you have a reason not to. But here's the problem for conservative Christians specifically. Once they let this kind of reasoning in, and boy have they, it can be employed with devastating force against the collection of counterintuitive moral monstrosities that make up some of their theology. If they can believe that our moral faculties are generally reliable enough to deduce the existence of objective morality in the first place, then surely one could believe they are generally reliable enough to denounce divinely sanctioned genocide. If they want people to take arguments from moral seemings seriously when they use them, then they probably shouldn't poo-poo the moral seemings of others when they, question the ethics of slavery in the Old Testament. My point in bringing this up isn't to go on another long tirade about Old Testament ethics, but rather to make the point that when it comes to moral arguments, conservatives can't have their cake and eat it too. If it really seems to me that X can be a good reason for you to believe something, dear conservative Christian, then there is no principled reason why it can't be a good reason for someone else to doubt the beliefs that you hold. Craig really doesn't seem to understand this and sometimes puts himself in comical positions.
This encapsulates a lot of the progressive arguments against penal substitution that I see, in that they're saying essentially God submitted to what we wanted. In fact, I remember asking a progressive pastor this once: why did Jesus need to die if his sacrifice wasn't substitutionary? Why did he have to die? And I remember the pastor saying to me, well, it's because we wanted our pound of flesh and then God gave it to us, but it wasn't something he was requiring. And so I'd love to get your response to this quote. God did not kill Jesus, human culture and civilization did.
Well, let me say first that the opinion that your pastor expressed is an abominable view of God, that God would do unjust actions like allow some innocent person to be killed, to allow somebody else to have his pound of flesh. What sort of deity does this man worship? That's really horrific.
This is too easy. Just look at how disgusted he is at this pastor's suggestion.
I remember asking a progressive pastor this once, but it wasn't something he was requiring. And so I'd love to get your response to this quote. God did not kill Jesus, human...
An abominable view. That's really horrific.
Yeah, that's revolting, but somehow Craig's views aren't. He literally believes that an innocent was tortured to death and experienced punishment for the sake of others, and that all of this was orchestrated by a perfectly just God. Really? Craig has also defended the morality of killing children, at least in the context of the destruction of the Canaanites.
So, whom does God wrong in this situation is my question. He doesn't wrong the adults because they deserved judgment, they deserved destruction. He doesn't wrong the children because God has the right to take and give life as he wants to, and it actually results in better situation for the children. The only people that I could think of that he would wrong in doing this would be the Israeli soldiers themselves who had to carry out such awful things.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, they had to go in and kill these people, and that would be brutalizing and dehumanizing to do such a thing.
After reflecting on this, I just keep thinking,
what sort of deity does this man worship? That's really horrific.
Craig is a smart guy, but he often has some pretty big double standards. Tap this video next to me to see another.